if you ever needed further evidence that having lots of data is just having lots of zeros and ones that don't mean anything without human interpretation, then today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet is for you. Because on today's episode, I am going to show you that what a data experiment decided was the most uneventful, most boring day in recent history is actually the most important day in recent history for one country and for all of Europe and all of Europe's partners in the world. I'm John Paulus. I'm a human being, and you are listening to Life's Potluck Buffet on YouTube. If you're enjoying Life's Potluck Buffet, please subscribe. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. If you have a Brave browser, you can now contribute basic attention tokens to Life's Potluck Buffet with John Paulus on YouTube. Thank you for your support, and thank you, as always, for listening. I didn't want to say the date that was named in, I believe, 2010 as the most boring day, most uneventful day in history. Well, it meant in recent history because the data that was used, that was mined in order to come up with this date, was more concentrated towards the present rather than the past, simply because of the massive amounts of information that have been recorded and digitized in the recent past, in the grand scheme of things. But that date, I'll say it now, is April 11th, 1954. And so the story behind this is that a company that developed a technology that was eventually integrated into what is today Amazon's Alexa. Well, that company had a database of 300 million facts, I believe. And what they decided to do was to find out what day did the fewest of the facts happen, fewest of what they thought of as being the inconsequential facts happened. So obviously there was some interpretation involved, but just a little. And what the whole exercise ended up with is that, well, April 11th, 1954, nothing really, quote unquote, remarkable happened. Now, obviously, this is just a marketing thing. If we just be realistic about it, just the company was trying to get their name out, and obviously this does not add to human knowledge in the least bit, or actually even predict what day is actually the most boring day. Obviously there's no such thing as a most boring day or most inconsequential day, because there's no way you could gather all of the facts and extrapolate those and analyze those in a way that would give you any meaningful answer to the question. It's just not possible. So we'll leave that aside. And obviously, this was something that was a bit of fun and ended up being, a really hot topic in the media, which is looking for stories on whatever uneventful day this came out. And so it kind of blew up, and then it became a thing, and then it kind of became an internet fact, which is to say a kind of meme. And so now if you look up April 11th, 1954, you'll get lots of articles about how it was determined statistically that this is and you get lots of videos too, how it is determined statistically to be the least interesting day in history, or the least eventful, the most uneventful. And that really gets reinforced. But I wanted to do this video because I looked at April 11th, 1954, and using the same data that the program had access to, I'm going to show you that April 11th, 1954 was actually not only an extremely consequential day for one country and for all of Europe and the world, but also extremely consequential for the very company that would purchase the technology that determined that April 11th, 1954 was the most boring date in history. Let me start with the day. It was a Sunday. And some of the things that happened were a race car driver won a Tuscan racing event. There was a cycling race that someone won in France. It was the final day of the New Orleans Women's Open, which is a golf tournament. And so it kind of makes sense. You're going to have some sporting events that end on a Sunday. That's pretty normal for a lot of sporting schedules, like almost every golf tournament, most every. And so there are going to be facts like that happen. Now, please notice that most of these things happened in either Western Europe or the United States. We're not going to worry about facts in other places, which very well may have happened on April 11th, 1954, on the same day of the calendar that is used in those places, happened in other places that might not have the same calendrical system, but also may not have been included in the 300 million facts that were in the database that was searched. So we're not gonna add elements to this game. We're gonna use the elements that are available, and let's just say, okay, these are the facts that we've got. And I'm going to show, even with the facts that we have, that this day was so very important. Now, it's down to one fact, really. And that one fact is a general election that happened in the country of Belgium on April 11th, 1954, on that Sunday. That general election was so consequential that it changed Belgian society forever to this day, and also changed European society forever until this day. Why? Here's why. On that day, the ruling party, the Christian Social Party, won a lot of seats in Parliament, but not enough to have the majority any longer, which meant that the other parties that were involved had enough seats to form a coalition and rule Belgium. And those parties were the Socialist Party and the Liberal Party. Those were the names of the parties at the time. Both of them don't exist in that form anymore. Now, with this new coalition government, the prime minister was a member of the Socialist Party named Akhil van Acker. And over the next few years, van Acker's government would create systems of social safety nets that led to the modern social security system in Belgium. And van Acker is really considered the kind of author of that system. There were also changes in the length of the work week, holiday, big changes in school, the creation of public schools, and the rules by which private schools could be created. Housing was created. A lot happened, and a lot changed in Belgian society because of this day, because of April 11th, 1954, when the previously ruling party did not secure enough votes to continue as the majority party, thus leading to this coalition government. On the liberal side of the coalition government, a politician by the name of Jean Rey was named as the Minister of Economy. Jean Rey was a central figure in the development of the European Economic Community. He was eventually the president of the European Commission and helped to create and strengthen the European Parliament, and later on was a key figure in the European Monetary Union and also in the expansion of the fiscal powers of what would be the European Union to get revenue beyond contributions from member states, in a sense to actually be its own kind of federal government. He had always been a big federal government person, and he had always looked to actually create in Belgium, it never happened, but to create in Belgium a federation where there were two states, Wallonia and Flanders, and there would be basically a capital region in Brussels. And so that was his big idea for Belgium, which didn't get passed. But nonetheless, Jean Rey was a central figure in the economic policies of what is now the European Union and the predecessor organizations to that. And so, in a sense, if it weren't for April 11th, 1954, and for the ruling coalition of those two parties that I just talked about, then Jean Rey would never have been Minister of Economy. It would have never had the influence or the ability to do what he did on a larger European stage. So April 11th, 1954 is looking pretty critical, not only to the existence of Belgium and Belgian society as it currently is configured, but also the existence of the European Union and its monetary powers and structure. And interestingly, he also increased the power of the European Parliament. And this is where it gets really interesting, because that very same European Parliament and the Council of the European Union, its councils of ministers, would pass on April 14th, 2016. Oh, so close. If it had been April 11th, 2016, then we would know something uncanny is going on. But on April 14th, 2016, the European Parliament and the Council of the European Union passed a regulation called the General Data Protection Regulation, or as it's known today, the GDPR. And if you're not familiar with the GDPR was a groundbreaking regulation about information privacy. And it is a set of information privacy regulations about personal data that has been copied and imitated and used as a model around the world for protection of personal data and personally identifiable data and individual control of data and their own data, and therefore of privacy on the internet. And a few years after the GDPR went into effect, it went into effect in 2018 in May, so not April 11th. The enforcement arm of the EU for the GDPR would fine the company that purchased the 300 million fact database and had some of the technology behind that behind Alexa, would fine Amazon around €750 million on the basis of the rules of the GDPR. So not only was April 11th, 1954 consequential for Belgium and Europe and the world, but it was also consequential for the very organization that would own the data that showed that April 11th, 1954 was the least consequential day in history. So it actually made it quite a consequential day for, ironically, the very group that said it was inconsequential. Well, let's ask the cards what's consequential for us today on June 15th, 2024. Yellow lemons, blue dumplings, magenta noodles. Cards, tell us some things. It's card 33. Call on a friend. So ask someone who's present in the room right now with you, if there is anybody, what they perceive your strengths to be. And also ask them if they'd be willing for you to say the same about them, and ask them what you think their strengths are. If there's no one around right now, when you get a moment, talk to a friend. And my friends, I'll talk to you on Life's Potluck Buffet tomorrow.